Kenneth, let's be real. These proposed changes from the CBO could change the lives of millions of veterans, and not for the better.
They're talking about cutting disability payments, taxing benefits, and even ending health care for access for veterans.
And these aren't just theories. These are real proposals on the table right now.
So now, if they're talking about reducing the disability benefits for veterans post-retirement age, that's gonna hurt a lot of veterans.
Hello and welcome to the Prepare to Compete podcast, where we talk all things VA benefits, real estate, entrepreneurship, and more. And I'm your host, Kayvon Jones, civilian patriot, business strategist, and advocate for veterans everywhere.
Hello, and I'm Kenneth Davis, again, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom Navy veteran, former VA Raider, and also, again, advocate for veterans at all things VA. But again, today's episode, we have a very, very enlightened special that's empowering veterans about the truth and the truth of their benefits, which we're really excited for.
All right, Kenneth, and I definitely want to get right into it and kind of talk about the most talked about proposals and what does that actually mean for veterans?
Yes. There's so many different things coming down the pipeline with the government, right? So again, everyone is a little bit on the edge, whether if it's government employment, whether if it's government benefits, whether if it's just government support, right? So with that being said, I want everyone to understand that it is very, very important that when we talk about proposals, the proposals coming from the Congressional Budgetary Office, right? Just please, I want to emphasize proposal, right? Proposal. All right, so I don't want anyone to get too up in arms. But now when we're talking about the CBO wants to cut approximately about $797 billion from the federal budget. Okay, that's all the way between 2025 to 2024, which again, reducing that is going to be able to major portion so they can obviously reduce the government's deficit. So it's very, very important that our veterans and our nation heroes actually know about these proposals and how it affects their benefits.
No, definitely. So now I know with these cuts, there's some different things regarding veteran household income and how they could be impacted regarding that. So could you explain that a bit more for us?
Yes. So when we talk about these proposals, right, they're looking to propose something called a means testing. Basically, again, for veterans, they're basing your benefits, they're going to be basing the benefits based upon your household income, okay, and what your compensation and what you can receive. Under this change, veterans would not be able to have a higher household income, specifically over $170,000, all right, annually, all right. So with that being said, that could actually affect many veterans in that tax bracket. So when we talk about these reductions could actually reduce or eliminate the disability payments from veterans, which is very interesting because now we don't want to penalize. Seems like we want to penalize some of our veterans from, really making well of themselves. And that's a very significant impact. I think the government, unfortunately, would actually harm our nation's heroes, right? So again, this is going to potentially put financial instability on people, anxiety, cause additional stress for families, and it's already pretty intense out here as we speak today. So with that, veterans, this is something that is proposed in regards to really affecting your household income. So with that, let's always make sure that we're focused on being proactive with things. All right. So, but again, we're going to maintain that quality of life for veterans. We're going to figure out how we're going to get through this together.
No, definitely, because when you're talking about household income, right, they're looking at it from a tax perspective, which, we can do a whole segment on that already in terms of your tax filing and how you actually file can definitely contribute and kind of change some things there, whether you are W-2, whether you're a business owner, or you married, filing joint or separate, different things, and what number are they actually looking at, right? Determining that. So you definitely want to really understand, because it can really create some financial instability, like you were saying, for families to have to deal with these different cuts.
Yeah, 100%. And not only the cuts, but we also have to take into account that with the instability of federal employment, right? That are they going based upon a 1 year of annual taxes, tax reporting? Are they going based upon 2 years, 3 years? There's so many different, details that needs to be laid out of this adjustment. And also, veterans need to be able to adjust themselves if this is something that is going to be viable. I know that the CBO has presented this before, but again, let's stop threatening veterans benefits, right? This is something that is hugely, giving to the most worthy people, but also affecting some of the most vulnerable people. So again, when we're talking about these cuts, I just really hope it's something that is just a proposal and doesn't able to be enacted.
Well, no, absolutely right. And I know you talked about, flaring up different things, right? When we're talking about anxiety, depression, PTSD, unfortunately. And, some of the cuts that they're looking at is actually ending individual unemployability at certain retirement ages. So can we get into talking about that and what that could mean for our veteran community?
No, most definitely, truly. And that is a secondary budgetary proposal that they're looking towards, right? That the government is looking towards a secondary proposal of ending individual unemployability at a retirement age. So right now, obviously, the regulation states that, again, that it is not going to be based upon age, sex, creed, or anything of that nature, right? When we're talking about individual unemployability. What is individual unemployability? Individual unemployability is basically the disability that is going to be able to get you to 100% permanent and total if you cannot work. If your disabilities have put you in a position where you are ineligible to maintain gainful employment, all right? Gainful employment. Let's go ahead and make sure that we focus on that, right? Now, they're stating that it's going to be ending at retirement age. Well, we know that many of our veterans are continuing to work long past retirement age. So with that being said, we want to make sure that we actually assist those veterans in not having to deal with this, right? So again, what is retirement age? Retirement age for most is 67 years of age, okay? So now 67, I know plenty of veterans are still working at 67. Okay, I know and it's not something that we're proud to be able to say, right? But many veterans are still working well past the age of 67 to support them and their families. All right. So and a lot of this that income that we talk about regards to Social Security and also individual unemployability benefits. Well, those benefits are supporting that elderly veteran. So to be able to reduce those financial resources is pretty dramatic.
Now, you definitely, for sure. So, because currently veterans could receive their individual unemployability benefits with their retirement pay?
Yes, so they're able to receive both, right? So now at this point in time, you're able to receive your retirement pay, and you're also able to receive your individual unemployability disability benefits, okay? But, however, you must be at least 50% or more. Okay, you must be at least 50% or more, okay, to be able to receive both. All right, there are some iniquities that go along with that, but we're not going to kind of get into that because that's another segment that we want to be able to provide for you guys. However, what I will tell you is this: is that as long as you are receiving both, we want to make sure that we're protecting both assets, and protecting one is kind of going to be solidified and based upon retirement. But another is going to be based upon, obviously, these proposals here.
Definitely, no, good information there. And, we're talking about our retired veterans. I know there's some other proposals regarding, veterans actually applying after the age of 67 for their VA benefits. And, I know with Veterans for Veterans, we've even helped a lot of Vietnam era veterans that would definitely fall in that classification there, and they surely deserve their benefits, even though they waited for later in life to apply.
Yeah. This one hits home, right? This one hits home. There's the Vietnam personnel. Listen, I salute you guys tenfold, okay? Because you have to understand, when we're talking about Vietnam veterans, it's a special group of veterans who really fought for the country, and they went into a how should I say, a place that was unknown, not only unknown, however, with this foreign land, they were fighting continuously. And these are some really, really strong veterans that I really tip my hat to. Majority of those veterans are really strong-willed and understand who they are, okay? But now, with that being said as well, now when we're talking about the Department of Veterans Affairs, they're always working towards getting better, right? But during that time frame, we must understand that the Department of Veterans Affairs, a lot of denials were happening on a regular basis. We also have to understand that PTSD wasn't a hugely widely understood issue. So now many veterans were denied their benefits, not understanding what's being shell shocked, not understanding why are you having these tropical illnesses, right? Which you can be service connected for. And also what's happening with Agent Orange exposure. So now, if they're talking about reducing the disability, okay, the disability benefits for veterans post-retirement age, that's going to hurt a lot of veterans, okay? And again, by reducing those benefits by 30%, and that's what they're proposing, to reduce the compensation to start receiving, by 30% after retirement age. These are the most vulnerable people in our community, right? Like, once you reach a certain age, they're vulnerable. You get a little bit more vulnerable. So now, with that being said, we want to make sure that we're protecting that community. All right. So with that being said, that would disrupt, again, their financial plans and their financial retirements and how they're sitting in their lives. So that's something that's being proposed as well, which again, it's totally unfortunate. But again, we want to be able to reduce the deficit. But at what cost? At what cost? These are the heroes that have served our country, have continued to fight, and that is continuing to fight for our country and our liberties on a regular basis. So please, let's really figure this out.
Definitely. Now, when we talked about veteran status, we're talking a lot right now about veterans who retire from service, right? Veterans who've, of course, served 20 years or more. And of course, to get their actual disability pay with the retirement, as you mentioned, has to be 50% or more. And now there are a lot of veterans who serve their enlistment, whether it's 4 to 6 years, or they may even kind of re-up and do 2 enlistments and different things and have anywhere between the 4 and 12 years of service. And they are still service connected, and they may be rated, lower than 50%. But right now, you're still able to receive service connected benefits in that 10% increment, right? And now I'm hearing there's some different changes that would change that system. Can you break down those changes for us?
Yes. This one is very interesting to me, right? So when we're talking about disrupting the eligibility for disability benefits lower than 30% or below, right? 30% or below. So basically, you're not going to be able to receive any disability compensation if you're 30% or lower, okay? This is what the CBO is suggesting. there are so many disabilities that are out there that is being affected on a regular basis that does not equate to a 50% rating, a 40% rating, a 60% rating. Okay, we understand the VA math, and if you don't understand, you can always go look at one of our videos prior to be able to get a little bit more understanding of what the VA math entails. But when we're talking about a low disability rating, that is going to affect some of our veterans who are essentially being affected over time, but is not gotten to the point of substantially needing an increase that is going to substantiate a 50% rating. Why? If you rolled your ankle carrying a rucksack going up a hill, why can't you receive that 10% rating? Because it's a chronic issue that you're going to continue to receive. If you receive headaches on a regular basis, that is not deliberating, why don't you receive, again, that 10 to 20%? Okay? Well, let me tell you, there are a lot of veterans that are formerly affected by injuries that does not equate to anything that 30% or more. And they, again, just because they push through the pain, just because they are not going to the hospital on a regular basis, just because they don't complain on a day-to-day basis, doesn't mean they're not affected. Doesn't mean they did not fight for those benefits. So please honor those veterans on a continuous basis. And again, I think the CBO should really take a suggestion about that.
No, definitely. So, yeah, there's so many proposed changes. And again, you mentioned prior to they're just proposed. So can you give us a history of some of the proposed changes? Not necessarily the detailed ones that have been proposed in the past, but how this process usually works, because in the past you would hear about different proposed changes and they would never happen, right? Because taking benefits from veterans is like the last thing the government would normally want to do. So kind of talk to us about that history there.
Well, kind of understanding the CBO and what they propose. It is not just in regards to veterans benefits, right? The Congressional Budget Office, their ultimate job is to go make opinions about certain agencies and departments who are going to reduce in areas to make it more efficient. And what I mean by more efficient is cutting spending, right? To reduce the deficit, to be able to ultimately make the government spending more efficient. So these proposals or opinions that are rolled out doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go into legislation and kind of go up the pipeline to become law. But what it does mean is that there is an opinionated agency out there that are trying to harm veterans. So with that being said, we want to make sure that if we're effectively kind of going down that pathway to understand that this agency could, reduce the deficit, please let's not harm the people that really have served to make this country a free country. So that's pretty much how it works, right? These proposals, they're just that. Doesn't mean that it's going to be suggested to be able to put in law. No. But I can tell you right now, as a veteran advocate here, it really grinds my gears that veterans are not more protected when we're talking about certain issues. So again, the military has consistently fought for this country and made this country a free and safe one, and let's continue to do so. So again, when we're talking about the CBO, we're not only talking about just veterans. However, let's focus on how to make it more efficient, but without harming the people that really serve this country.
No, definitely don't want to do that. So again, there's more proposed changes here. We want to really just educate you on those, right? Not to strike fear or anything of that nature, but really just provide you with that education so that if any of these things do come down the pipeline to be legislation, you are prepared for what's going on. That's what we're here to do. Prepare you at the Prepare to Compete podcast.
Most definitely.
Now, definitely. So the next proposed change actually hits the world of healthcare, okay? So they're talking about ending medical care enrollment for priority groups 7 and 8. And now, obviously, CBO is doing a lot of different things here. But Kenneth, can you explain to our community here who exactly falls into those priority groups 7 and 8 and how these changes could potentially impact those veterans?
Yes. So when we're talking about this, I want everybody to understand we're talking about a very vulnerable group of personnel, right? We're talking about ending medical care for a priority group 7 and a priority group 8. Okay. There are different priority groups regardless of how the VA works. So if you go to the VHA and you're looking for hospital care or, again, any type of health care, you're going to be assigned a priority based upon, obviously, income, based upon service connection, so on and so forth. Okay. But when we're talking about priority group 7 and 8, so 7, that's going to be a lower income threshold who is non-compensable. All right. And what does that exactly mean? Right. You're not service connected, but you're agreeing to pay co-pays for your health care. OK. Now, when you're actually agreeing to pay co-pays, that's all fine and dandy. But now, again, you're talking about ending medical care for the veterans. OK. And not only ending medical care for veterans, you're also talking about ending medical care for a vulnerable group of veterans who is a specific sector, okay, who is a lower threshold, who is a lower income threshold. And that's, again, lowering that for priority group 7. All right. And now when we're talking about ending health care for and penalizing the higher income group of veterans, right, and priority group 8, that is going to be the higher income but non-service connected. So when we're talking about that, how we need to make sure what we're stating here, what we're doing here, and ending healthcare is a very, very detrimental portion of harming our veterans at hand. Okay, healthcare is should be something that is provided for someone who's fought for this country on a regular basis, who's been exposed to hazardous noise, who's been exposed to certain toxic exposures, right? Agent Orange, chemicals, hazmat on a regular basis, JP5, JP4, a flight deck, and so on and so forth. These things, again, we're literally exposed to these things on a regular basis. So if you're exposed to these things on a regular basis, there are going to be some health complications that you're exposed to. So now you need to be taken care of. And now for the CBO to propose ending healthcare just to cut back on the budget for some of the most vulnerable, group of veterans, and also penalizing some of the most, more successful veterans in regards to higher income. And that doesn't necessarily mean, success when we're talking about income. However, just to kind of put it in perspective, that is going to harm a very large group of personnel. So when we talk about these proposals, let's focus on areas that are not going to really harm the vulnerable. And again, ending healthcare, I think, is really one that gets under my skin there.
No, absolutely. Healthcare and taxes, right? Healthcare and taxes are critical issues, and unfortunately, for the veteran community here, they're also talking about changing some different things with the tax structure. Now, as we may already be aware, if you receive retirement pay, that is generally taxed, right? However, your VA disability payments at any percentage has not been taxed. So now this is some controversial things happening here, Kenneth, and should definitely cause some major concern. They're actually trying to shift the landscape to actually tax disability payments.
Yes. And that's a high alert alarm for a lot of veterans, right? When we're talking about taxing the benefits that's being offered, when we're talking about taxing those benefits, we have to understand that these benefits have been acted to be tax-free income for many veterans. And a lot of these veterans rely on those benefits year after year after year to be able to take care of themselves and their families. And some of those veterans don't have the ability to even work, okay? So now to talk about taxing veterans, you are taxing some of the most vulnerable group of personnel who maybe can, and some who cannot work. Because again, as we know, every scar isn't visible. Okay. And now we have veterans that are unfortunately unemployed because of the circumstances that the military has really exposed them to. So with that being said, taxing the income of the disability benefits is essentially reducing the amount of the ability to be able to take care of that veteran and their family.
Wow.
Okay. So again, having financial security is going to potentially make sure many veterans are okay. Okay. They already deal with a lot of stressors ongoingly, due to chronic pain, due to again constant diseases and issues. Right. Many veterans. Okay. However, having financial security in some vein of receiving their disability benefits, that's something that is going to provide some type of solace for them and their family. So please, again, these proposals, I'm not going to say that they could be absurd, but I'm going to say it's not going to be able to go over well with the veteran community. That's all I'm going to say. But with that being said, with the CBO, as we understand that these are all proposals, I want everybody to understand that these are all proposals. And as we advocate for veterans, I want you guys to understand that when we go into these offices and go and speak to this personnel, we are always going to put you guys at the forefront. And some of these proposals right here are not going to really fly well in those discussions. So as the veteran community knows, we're here to serve, and we're always going to be here to educate and support.
Absolutely. Kenneth, thank you for this wonderful information. And for veterans that kind of want to make sure that they're staying in the know, right? They're staying updated on resources and different things, on knowing what proposed change is becoming legislation. Because, as we kind of got into April of 2025, a lot of veterans were thinking about, hey, tinnitus was going away, changes with sleep apnea, changes with other conditions with mental health and different things that were proposed. And it was almost like stamped that those things were happening in April of 2025. However, even those changes haven't been really finite into going into legislation there.
Yeah. They're still churning. That wheel. Again, it's coming down the pipeline, but again, you guys can always reference a video that we're going to make sure that we put out for you guys when it drops. Okay. We don't like to put teasers out. We want to make sure that we actually talk about the real stuff in real time. Right. Because again, this is actually going to affect veterans, but we're also going to be proactive and give you the things of what to do and what not to do. All right. But that's something that, again, we talked about before with these proposed changes. And, there is some churning in the legislation. But again, with that official date, as we know, once it's released, you guys will know first. You guys will know first in regards to the tinnitus, the mental, and also sleep apnea.
Great, man. Kenneth, thank you for that. Veterans, stay tuned, prepare to compete. We're out. Peace.